The National Electrical Code, also known as NEC, and other safety standards generally prohibit splicing home runs in a junction box. Home runs are the wires that run from individual outlets, switches, and appliances back to the electrical panel. There are reasons for this prohibition. Firstly, safety. Splicing home runs in a junction box can create a potential fire hazard. Over time, the splices can become loose, overheated, and cause electrical arcing. Secondly, reliability. Junction boxes are designed to hold wire connections, not to serve as a permanent splicing point. Splices may not be as reliable as continuous wiring, which reduces the risk of electrical malfunctions. Thirdly, code violations. The NEC and other building codes typically require the use of continuous wires from outlets and switches to the electrical panel. There is a temporary power exception. In certain limited circumstances, temporary splicing of home runs in a junction box may be permitted. This is usually allowed only for emergency situations, such as when power needs to be restored temporarily following a power outage or damage to the electrical system. When doing this, the following conditions must be met. Firstly, the splices are made securely using approved methods. Secondly, the junction box is accessible for inspection and maintenance. Thirdly, the temporary wiring is clearly labeled and does not pose a safety hazard. An insurance company's coverage of the cost of splicing home runs depends on the specific terms of the policy and the circumstances of the claim. If the splicing was done as a temporary measure to restore power following a covered event, the insurance company may consider it a reasonable and necessary expense. It is generally not advisable to splice home runs permanently to ensure safety and compliance with electrical codes. If temporary splicing is required, be sure to follow proper safety precautions and obtain the necessary permits and approvals from the local electrical inspector. Electrical safety is paramount in any wiring project, and understanding the regulations set forth by the National Electrical Code is crucial for ensuring the well-being of people and the longevity of electrical systems. When dealing with home runs, which are the direct lines from an electrical panel to an outlet, switch, or appliance, the NEC generally discourages splicing within a junction box due to several safety and reliability concerns. A primary reason for this prohibition is the potential for increased fire hazards. Splicing introduces connection points, and over time, these connections can loosen. Loose connections increase resistance, leading to overheating, which in turn can cause electrical arcing. Electrical arcing is a dangerous phenomenon where electricity jumps between 2 points, creating intense heat that can ignite nearby materials. Junction boxes are intended to house connections, but they are not designed as permanent splicing locations for home runs. The reliability of a splice is inherently less than that of a continuous wire. A continuous wire provides an uninterrupted path for electricity, minimizing the risk of faults or failures. Splices, however, are susceptible to corrosion, loosening, and other forms of degradation, which can lead to malfunctions and potential hazards. The NEC typically mandates that continuous wires should run from outlets and switches back to the electrical panel without intermediate splices. This requirement minimizes the number of potential failure points in the electrical system, thus enhancing overall safety. However, there are specific scenarios where temporary splicing of home runs within a junction box may be permissible. These situations generally arise during emergency repairs or when restoring power after an outage or damage to the electrical system. In such cases, strict conditions must be met to ensure safety. Firstly, any temporary splices must be made using approved methods. This means employing connectors and techniques that are recognized by electrical standards as safe and reliable for the specific application. Wire nuts, crimp connectors, and other approved splicing devices should be used correctly to ensure a secure and long-lasting connection. Secondly, the junction box containing the temporary splices must remain accessible for inspection and maintenance. Accessibility allows electricians to periodically check the splices for any signs of degradation or failure. This is crucial for identifying and addressing potential problems before they escalate into safety hazards. Thirdly, all temporary wiring must be clearly labeled to indicate its temporary nature. Proper labeling alerts anyone working on the electrical system that the wiring is not permanent and should be treated with caution. Additionally, the temporary wiring must not pose any safety hazard. This includes ensuring that the wiring is properly insulated, protected from physical damage, and routed in a way that minimizes the risk of accidental contact. When evaluating insurance coverage for electrical work, it's essential to understand the terms and conditions of your specific policy. Insurance companies typically cover repairs that are necessary to restore power after a covered event such as a fire or storm damage. If the splicing of home runs was a temporary measure taken to restore power following such an event, the insurance company may consider it a reasonable and necessary expense. However, the insurance company may deny coverage if the splicing was done improperly or if it violates electrical codes. To ensure compliance with electrical codes and to maintain the safety of your electrical system, it is generally recommended to avoid permanent splicing of home runs. If temporary splicing is necessary, it's crucial to follow all safety precautions and to obtain the required permits and approvals from the local electrical inspector. The electrical inspector can provide guidance on proper splicing techniques and can ensure that the work meets all applicable codes and standards. Moreover, engaging a qualified electrician to perform any electrical work is always a prudent decision. A qualified electrician has the knowledge, skills, and experience to perform electrical work safely and correctly. They can also identify potential hazards and ensure that the electrical system meets all applicable codes and standards. In summary, while the NEC generally prohibits splicing home runs in junction boxes due to safety and reliability concerns, temporary splicing may be permitted in certain emergency situations. When temporary splicing is necessary, it's crucial to follow proper safety precautions, obtain the required permits and approvals, and engage a qualified electrician. By adhering to these guidelines, you can ensure the safety and integrity of your electrical system. Understanding the nuances of electrical codes, particularly the National Electrical Code, is essential for anyone involved in electrical installations or repairs. The NEC provides a comprehensive set of standards and guidelines designed to ensure the safety of electrical systems and those who interact with them. One area where the NEC provides specific guidance is the splicing of home runs, which are the wires that run directly from an electrical panel to individual outlets, switches, and appliances. In general, the NEC discourages the splicing of home runs within junction boxes. This prohibition is based on several key considerations. Firstly, safety. Splicing home runs introduces additional connection points, which can become potential sources of failure. Over time, these connections can loosen due to vibration, thermal cycling, or corrosion. A loose connection increases resistance, leading to overheating and potentially electrical arcing. Electrical arcing is a dangerous phenomenon where electricity jumps between two conductors, creating intense heat that can ignite nearby materials. Secondly, reliability. Continuous wires offer a more reliable path for electricity compared to spliced wires. Splices introduce points of discontinuity in the circuit, which can reduce the overall reliability of the electrical system. A continuous wire eliminates these potential failure points, providing a more stable and consistent flow of electricity. Thirdly, code compliance. The NEC typically requires that home runs run continuously from the electrical panel to the point of use without any intermediate splices. This requirement is intended to minimize the number of potential failure points in the electrical system and to enhance overall safety. However, there are certain exceptions to this rule. In some cases, temporary splicing of home runs may be permitted in emergency situations. For example, if a section of wire is damaged due to fire, water, or other causes, temporary splicing may be necessary to restore power until permanent repairs can be made. In these situations, the NEC allows for temporary splicing provided that certain conditions are met. Firstly, the splices must be made using approved methods and materials. This means using connectors and techniques that are specifically designed for splicing electrical wires and that are listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories or Intertech. Examples of approved splicing methods include using wire nuts, crimp connectors, or terminal blocks. Secondly, the junction box containing the splices must be accessible for inspection and maintenance. This requirement ensures that electricians can periodically inspect the splices to check for any signs of loosening, corrosion, or other problems. The junction box must be located in a place where it can be easily accessed without having to remove any permanent structures. Thirdly, the temporary wiring must be clearly labeled to indicate its temporary nature. This labeling helps to prevent confusion and ensures that future electricians are aware that the wiring is not permanent. The labeling should include the date of the splice, the reason for the splice, and the name of the person who made the splice. Whether or not an insurance company will cover the cost of splicing home runs depends on the specific terms of the insurance policy and the circumstances of the claim. In general, insurance policies cover damages caused by covered events such as fire, wind, or water. If the splicing of home runs was necessary to restore power after a covered event, the insurance company may consider it a reasonable and necessary expense. However, the insurance company may deny coverage if the splicing was done improperly or if it violates electrical codes. To avoid any disputes with the insurance company, it is important to document the damage, the repairs that were made, and the reasons why the repairs were necessary. It is also important to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that the repairs are done safely and in accordance with electrical codes. In addition to the NEC, local electrical codes may also apply to the splicing of home runs. Local codes may be more restrictive than the NEC, so it is important to check with the local electrical inspector to determine the specific requirements in your area. The local electrical inspector can also provide guidance on proper splicing techniques and can answer any questions you may have about electrical codes. In summary, the splicing of home runs is generally discouraged by the NEC due to safety and reliability concerns. However, temporary splicing may be permitted in emergency situations provided that certain conditions are met. It is important to consult with a qualified electrician and the local electrical inspector to ensure that any splicing is done safely and in accordance with the electrical codes. The complexities surrounding electrical work often lead to questions about specific practices and their adherence to safety standards. One such question involves splicing home runs, the wires running directly from the electrical panel to outlets or appliances. Understanding the regulations and best practices is crucial for maintaining a safe electrical system. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, serves as the cornerstone for electrical safety in the United States. This comprehensive set of guidelines outlines the proper procedures for electrical installations, aiming to minimize hazards and ensure reliable performance. While the NEC doesn't explicitly forbid all splicing, it strongly discourages the practice for home runs, especially within junction boxes. This stance stems from several valid concerns. Firstly, fire hazards. Splicing introduces connection points that, over time, can become loose. This looseness increases resistance, leading to overheating and potentially sparking or arcing. Such events can easily ignite nearby materials, posing a significant fire risk. Secondly, reliability issues. A continuous wire offers a more dependable pathway for electricity than a spliced one. Each splice represents a potential point of failure susceptible to corrosion, vibration, or improper installation. These factors can compromise the integrity of the circuit, leading to malfunctions or complete failures. Thirdly, code violations. Many local and national electrical codes mandate continuous runs of wire from the panel to the outlet or appliance. Splicing home runs within junction boxes directly contravenes these regulations, potentially leading to fines or requiring rework to meet code compliance. Despite the general prohibition, certain situations might warrant temporary splicing of home runs. These instances typically involve emergency repairs or temporary power restoration following damage. However, even in these scenarios, strict guidelines must be followed. Firstly, approved methods. Any temporary splices must utilize approved connectors and techniques specifically designed for electrical wiring. These include wire nuts, crimp connectors, or terminal blocks, all installed according to manufacturer instructions and relevant electrical codes. Secondly, accessibility. The junction box housing the temporary splices must remain readily accessible for inspection and maintenance. This allows for periodic checks to ensure the splices are secure and free from corrosion or damage. Obscuring the junction box behind walls or ceilings defeats this purpose and can create long-term hazards. Thirdly, clear labeling. All temporary wiring must be clearly labeled as such, indicating its temporary nature and the date of installation. This prevents confusion during future electrical work and ensures that the temporary splices are addressed during permanent repairs. Insurance coverage for electrical work, including splicing of home runs, depends heavily on the specifics of your policy and the circumstances surrounding the claim. If the splicing was performed as a necessary temporary measure to restore power following a covered event, your insurance company may cover the associated costs. However, if the splicing was done improperly or violates electrical codes, the insurance company may deny coverage. To ensure your claim is processed smoothly, document all damage and repairs thoroughly, and consult with a qualified electrician to ensure the work meets code requirements. To guarantee a safe and compliant electrical system, avoid permanent splicing of home runs whenever possible. If temporary splicing is unavoidable, adhere strictly to approved methods, maintain accessibility, and provide clear labeling. Consulting with a licensed electrician is always recommended to ensure the work is performed correctly and meets all applicable codes. The NEC and local regulations are designed to protect lives and property. Understanding and adhering to these guidelines is paramount for anyone working with electrical systems. Always prioritize safety and seek professional help when unsure about any electrical procedure. By doing so, you contribute to a safer environment for yourself and others.